Hello and welcome to today's episode of Activating Magic. I'm Darla Ledoux, your host. I'm here with Monique McDonald, and I am so delighted to have you here, Monique. Thanks for saying yes.
Oh, I was so excited to be here and thanks for asking.
So we met at an event. And immediately I was so drawn to your presence. I think we all stood up and introduced ourselves, in a
That's right.
big group. And there was just something in your energy and the way, obviously your business is the magnetic voice. So you practice what you teach. But I felt like, oh, I really want to know this person. And then when we spoke, I felt the presence in your eyes, like the magic that you project from your eyes. And so I'm excited to be here. I know you help people create their talks and be more embodied when they speak and all of that. And I don't know, your whole backstory and why this is your path. So I'd love to start there.
Mm, thank you. So many stories, so little time, right? Well, let's start with uh, why I'm so passionate about helping people in the way that I do. Um, so I know you're going to totally identify with this, Darla. I just woke up one morning and I thought to myself, you know what? I am so tired of, I just can't sit still anymore and watch amazing experts and entrepreneurs play small and not access their entire voice, all of their presence and power to speak and be seen so the people that need them can find them.
Mm.
And through an amazing series of events that I'm going to try to walk you through quickly, um, I decided this is my calling, at least for now. My calling before I started helping people as the magnetic voice mentor, I was, well, I guess I still am, a Grammy nominated, award winning opera singer.
I think you still are.
And I got to really live my dream and travel the world, filling people's heart with love and art, and to be the vessel of
Mm.
art through my voice. And the beautiful part of the story that most people don't know is that my mother was my voice teacher.
Wow.
And she was my best friend, my mom, my voice teacher, really my everything. And especially when I was working overseas, we'd warm up together. Before there was Zoom, there was Skype.
Mm.
And we went through this journey together as I traveled the world. And then tragically, uh, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
And so everything stopped because I'm an only child and it was very important to me to be there for her.
Mm.
And my agent was not very happy with me. I canceled everything, but that's what you do, right? And um, after she passed away, I was in such a dark place. It actually happens that I was working in Russia and I was singing a concert the day I found out that she
Mm.
was she had passed, and I was going to cancel it, but she said, no, I raised you to fly, and when you sing, God smiles. So she wanted me to
Wow.
go. And as I look back at it, I think it's probably because, sometimes it's harder to leave when your loved ones are there, right?
Mm. Monique, you probably don't know this about me, but my why story that I told for a decade is around losing my stepdad to cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And
I'm
it was
so
a
sorry.
really rapid, diagnosis, and he passed within 3 months. But the
Mm.
clincher was I was working in corporate and I had taken off time to be with him. And then my boss said, "We really need you to show your face here to keep your job." And I went back to work, and that's when he passed. And I also wasn't there.
Oh my goodness, Darla.
Yeah. And it's I love that you said, I kind of have had the story. People just don't like to die around me, you know.
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, that's right.
Um, but
Yeah,
it also made me feel like I want the choice to be able to be where I want to be when I want to be there and not feel confined by someone else's rules.
right. Which is
Yeah.
what made you decide to do what you do, right?
Exactly.
I love
Yeah.
that. And so when I got home, I was really devastated. And I think the part that I wasn't expecting, of course, my mom died. I knew it was going to be grief and sadness. But what I wasn't expecting was that I lost my identity. I realized
Mm,
that throughout my life, being an only child and my mom being my best friend, whatever happened to me, whatever successes happened to me weren't really real till I told mommy about it, you know?
mm,
And so when I got back and I was trying to figure out, okay, who am I? Who am I without her?
mm,
And one day, probably about a year later, I was really, it was like, okay, you've got to get over this. But, grief takes as long as it takes, right?
mm,
And I came across this Netflix special called I'm Not Your Guru with Tony
mm,
Robbins.
mm,
And two things happened to me that day. The first was that I found out he had a training center where he trained people to do his specific type of coaching, which is called
mm,
strategic intervention. And I
mm.
signed up right away because it got me out of bed. I got excited about something which I hadn't for a year.
Yes.
And then the second thing that happened was his voice was in shreds.
Mm,
And he was doing vocal exercises during the
mm,
documentary. And I
mm,
thought to myself, okay, that's good information, but I have better information. I'm trained to sing in theaters that seat 1,000 or more with no microphone.
mm.
I know how to take care of your voice, how to speak according to the laws of nature. And then it occurred to me,
Ooh.
right? And then it occurred to me, what if I get to the next Tony Robbins or the next person with a huge message
Mm,
and I show them how to align their voice to their message, to their passion, to that magical divine power that is within all of us. And that was it.
that was it.
That was it.
Wow.
That's that's the basic story.
Okay, so this statement, speak according to the laws of nature.
Yes.
Can you say more about that?
Oh, yes. I'm going to start by sharing with you one of my favorite quotes. You ready?
Hmm.
It only takes one voice at the right pitch to
Mm.
start an avalanche.
Mm.
And of course, most of us don't want to start an avalanche, but we would love an avalanche of clients, right? An
Mhm.
avalanche of opportunities, starting our own tribe, right?
Yeah.
And what I mean is, most of us are not speaking with our entire voice
Mm.
and our entire being, our
Yeah.
presence. And
Hmm.
mechanically, there are, meaning technically, the way the human voice works is, and most people don't know this, our voice is literally influenced. The way we produce sound, the way our voice comes out is influenced by our life experience.
Hmm.
So if
Yeah.
you have been experiencing trauma, if you've given up and your whole chest is sunken in because
Hmm.
it affects our voice. And so what I teach people is how to, it's a combination of posture,
Hmm.
breathing correctly, and allowing your voice its natural rise and fall,
Hmm.
variance in pitch,
Yeah, I felt
so
that.
that some parts are higher, some parts are lower. It's something that naturally happens when we are in balance.
Mhm.
When we're excited, we talk like this. When we're depressed, we're monotone.
Mhm.
If we're reading our content, the voice goes into monotone because we're not fully present. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I remember I took landmark education. That was kind of my first foray into this world. And they have a concept called generating versus like
Mm,
reading, right? Where you're, and they didn't use the word embodied. They're very heady,
yes.
actually. But that's how I interpret it, right? Is really like an embodied expression versus talking from your head and doing
Yes.
that thing.
And it really is true because when you are breathing a full belly breath, and I could teach a whole lesson on that, and I do.
Mhm.
um, why most of us are not breathing full bellied, full bodied breaths. We're filling
Yeah.
from the chest up, some of us from the neck up.
Mhm.
Um, and that brings me
Yeah.
back.
You,
Yeah. And that
you
brings me back.
said your life, your speaking is it's being influenced by your life. So I'm, projecting my own, the way that I work. And we talk over here about shifting the field and how there's a default energy pattern that gets stuck in the body. We have,
Yes.
lots of them. And then it influences how we move, how we carry ourselves. And so I'm guessing you're talking about that. So talk about how that affects our voice, our stage presence.
Right. So these patterns that get stuck in our body makes us walk and
Mm.
stand in a certain way. And when you really get good at this, you can look at a person and really see
Mhm.
what life has been doing to them lately
Yeah.
or how they've interpreted what life is doing to them, right? Um, the sunken chest, the shoulders falling forward, right? That tends to indicate a giving up or a
Mm.
collapse,
Yeah.
right? Shoulders as earrings, up and high, and breathing up and high, right? That's somebody who is running as fast as they can so nobody can see them, usually.
Mm.
Talking as fast as they can so nobody really listens
Mm.
because of their
Mm.
fear of truly just being themselves. Yeah, it
I'm
can.
I'm imagining people listening and going like
Like,
adapting.
yes, do it. Drop your shoulders, people. Drop your shoulders.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yes. And just noticing,
Um,
especially the breath, breathing is such, we forget that, especially when we're in public, breathing, a lot of us stop breathing and we're not aware.
yeah.
And that comes from something, and I'm guessing you probably are discussing this in your work as well, Darla. I love how our work overlaps. It's really beautiful.
Mhm.
um I talk a lot about visibility,
Mhm.
and right, every entrepreneur, every expert talks about, and every coach talks about, you have to be visible so that your people who need you can find you. I say that too. right?
Mhm.
However, we forget that there is a natural biological reason that most of us resist vulnerability.
Yeah.
I mean, vulnerability, yes, also, but
Both.
visibility. And it's because deep in our DNA lies the danger of being apart from the pack,
Mhm.
being away from the tribe, standing in front of the people is the most dangerous place to be.
Mhm.
So even though we say we want that, we have to really navigate getting ourselves into the state to be seen and heard. And this is
Yes.
one a thing I call it priming your energy to be seen and heard. Everybody has their sort of way of expressing this, but I think it's something that most speakers miss.
Mhm.
They just sort of barrel into the talk. Or
Mhm.
even if you're teaching or having a one-to-one conversation, you just sort of barrel in. You don't prepare your
Mhm.
psyche to be seen and heard.
Mhm.
And that's something that is essential that I really work with people on because they don't have they just it just never has occurred to them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it wouldn't unless somebody talked about it. But that is something because we've all seen those speakers that are talking at you,
Yes.
right? They're talking at
It's like,
you and they
oh,
yeah,
right
yeah,
over the
and
head.
they just want to get the information out of them. And they're terrified of not being listened to
Mhm.
and often feeling the feeling and not having a name for it or word for it of that danger signal that's
Yes.
coming at them, that's within them, right?
Yes.
So,
So good.
so that's the one of the things, and I call it the ABCs of magnetism. Really, the first one is really, really simple. Just adjust your thoughts. One of my easiest
Mm.
ways to do that is, for example, for our meeting today, I just imagined being with you, Darla, and filling the room, even if it's a Zoom room, with love.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm walking into love as I enter the room. I'm sending love from my heart to
Mhm.
you. I'm already enjoying that we're gonna make magic together and have a fantastic time, right?
Yes.
So I'm that's what I'm thinking about. Most people are not thinking those kinds of thoughts.
Right. What am I going to say? How do I get it right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, and I would say that's probably why when you stood up and, I think we had 30 seconds to say something,
That's right.
you, I felt you.
That's exactly why. And it's so simple. So that's first. A is adjust your
Mm.
thoughts. B is breathe.
Mm.
Breathe. It's the secret because once you start taking those belly breaths and really allow yourself into your body and breathe, you instantly become more present, more
Mhm.
you. And it gives the signal to your diaphragm and your vagus nerve that you're safe.
Beautiful.
And the third one is something that is takes us back to the quote. It comes from Diana Hardy's book, which is quite dark. So it's not for everyone. But the idea behind the book is our natural wild part of us versus our human rational thinker. And most of us have been living in our minds for so long, we forget that we are part, let's call it nature. Some
Mhm.
people call it beast or
Mm.
animal. although that is
I'm
true.
so curious what the C is.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So this is what I'm setting up the C.
You are
Okay.
doing great.
I'm setting up the C. So most of us are leaving out the part of us where our natural power lies. So C is connect to the part of you that is divine power
Mm.
and that acts as a natural magnet
Mhm.
to those who need you, to
That's
those.
magic.
That's magic. I knew you were going to say that.
I
That
love
is
that.
magic. That
Mhm.
is how we put ourselves back into the equation. That's what sets us
Mhm.
apart. That's what makes us different than any other speaker, is that part of you that we've been rejecting,
Mhm.
that natural, wild, zany, that part of you that somewhere long ago was told to sit still, be quiet, don't be too loud, certainly don't use your whole voice, that
Right.
instinctual part of us.
Mm. So many thoughts. So many thoughts. I am really present to a couple of things. I'm present to what you said a while back around you do this long enough and you can just see in someone's body how life has been treating them lately. So I want to dive into that and then I want to come back to this divine power. Um, your magic, I have a framework, right? There's 6 types of magics in my framework.
Okay.
And I'm hearing, I have a few guesses and I'm curious how you would identify. So when you're working with your client and you're really seeing what's in the way, right? This is like my belief is that our divine guidance is guiding us to higher consciousness, guiding us to help our clients shift into higher consciousness. And so it's really adept at seeing truth.
Yes.
What maybe me within myself, I don't see because it's in my blind spot, right? It's part of my survival mechanism. It just is what it is. And that's how I've done life to stay safe.
Mm. Yes.
And so you see it. And when you're working with your clients, would you say, so sensation magic is really seeing it in the body, feeling it in your own body, like feeling their tightness in your body, even?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, there's vibration, which is kind of reading the big picture of the vibration they're bringing, which I
I
could
love that
also
you
see.
said that. Oh, I love that. Because that is a huge part of
Mm,
it, again, that most people miss. Everyone talks about the law of attraction, but very few discuss the
mm,
law of vibration.
mm. Yeah. So
So,
tell me how you experience that.
well, the law of vibration is the second of the universal laws.
Mm,
And it states that every living organism, every inanimate object, every thought, feeling, and desire has a unique vibration onto itself.
mm,
And what that means from my perspective of the voice is that when you really get this, you can tune your presence and your voice to whoever is in front of you.
ooh, okay, keep going.
But first, you have to tune yourself to your divine power, to your magic, if you will.
Mm,
You have to fill your cup first.
mm,
Because if not, we go outside of ourselves in order to go meet the people,
mhm,
right?
mm,
And then we're no longer vibrating at our natural, unique vibration.
mm,
We have to be in ourselves, in our own presence, in our own vibration. and then tune it to who's in front of us, tune it to the room, tune it to the content. What is your intention for this talk?
Oh my goodness, this is so good. I'm thinking of that really is where creation can happen.
Yes.
If I'm giving myself up to please you, nothing's going to happen. But if
Ex
I'm here, you're there, or the room is there, and there's something in between, there's this space in between we get to play in, to me, that's creation.
Yes. Yes, Darla. Yes.
Mm.
And a lot of us are afraid to live
Ooh,
in that
yes.
vibration of creation because the mind isn't involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
That is our innate or natural or wild, magical self
Yes.
that is feeling and tuning. And you're constantly doing it, whether you're aware of it or not. You know, there's some people that walk in the room and you're like, I'm not vibing with that person. This is why. This is
Yeah.
why. But we usually leave it at that. And granted, there are people that are just not your people. But if you know how to really tune
Mm,
yourself to yourself, no
mm,
one can push your buttons.
mhm.
This is where the power lies. And then aligning your voice and your message to this is,
Yes. Okay, so more questions.
yay,
If we
I love questions.
if we think of this, you said most people are afraid to live in that vibration because the mind's not involved.
Mhm,
Totally get that, right? Because it's created in the moment.
mhm.
Like you could give the same talk. I used to do the same retreat, right? I had retreats called Retreat and Grow Rich Live, and we would plan people's retreats, and it would be the same retreat, but it was never the same, right?
Exactly.
Because so giving the same talk, it's never the same talk. I'm imagining if you're really using this, what, how, how do you help people practice? How do you think of
Ooh,
practicing your talk or preparing your talk? This is the biggest. I have so many people ask questions about this. Like, I just want to show up and be in my magic and not have to prepare. I hate preparing. So when you're helping people with
I
a talk, how they've got to prepare.
can I just, Darla, can I just stop you there and tell you how much I love you for that question? I just love this question. And it was true for singers as well.
Ooh. Mm.
Interesting, right? If you are an instrumentalist, you are taught how to practice. And
Mm.
instrumentalists spend hours in the practice room
Mm.
practicing their instrument. But singers and speakers forget that they are also an instrument.
Mm.
So I teach my speakers, like I teach my singers, how to practice. And what that really entails is improv.
Mm.
I take the talk apart. Most speakers don't do this. They practice the whole talk. I take it apart. Your opening, your why story, your teaching points, your call to action. And this is the part that trips up most speakers. They don't know when they're done.
Mm.
They just keep talking, and it's always a very awkward moment. They don't know when they're done. So I
Yes,
call it the ta-da moment, right?
I've
It's very
definitely done
theater.
that.
Yeah. Very
Yes.
theater. I like to also call it the button. You button the button and you know you're done.
Mm.
Mhm. And that's
Yeah.
usually a phrase or something that you stand for or stand against that you want to leave your
Mhm.
audience with. And so, how we practice is we practice each section as its own thing.
Mhm.
So, we master the pieces first,
Mhm.
and then we put it all together.
Mhm.
We
I think I do
practice.
that
You
myself.
probably
Like
do.
I think in chunks like that and like
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we practice just the words. And I because I'm a firm believer, please, anybody within the sound of my voice, please never read your talk again. Don't do it.
Mm-mm.
Don't do it. And don't memorize it, because that's just like reading it.
Mhm.
What I help them, my clients, do is I give them to find their bullet points of the places they want to take their audience in each part of their talk. And then they riff like a jazz player. You
Mhm.
know your content. You don't have to read it. Trust yourself, right?
Mhm.
No, but know what your opening is, know what your why story is, know the pieces. So then you can just be present and fully giving. And that's how I help my clients practice.
Wow. Trust yourself are key words for me because our magic is our knowing and we have to trust it. Like the more I say, believe yourself, receive from source. Like the
Ah,
more
I
we just
love that.
believe what feels true for us, the more information we get and the more we're guided. So on the day of the talk, if they've been practicing these chunks and they know their beats, their bullets, um, what's your guidance then? In addition to ABC?
Right.
Or how does the C play out on the day of?
On the day of, you are thinking thoughts that vibrate with your magnificence. You're thinking thoughts that remind you how great you are. Sometimes I will read um, testimonials,
Mm.
right? And just fill my, or do affirmations, or I love EFT tapping. Figure out what it is for you that
Mhm.
sets you up. Sometimes I listen to amazing music that really inspires me and just puts me into this state. And then about 15 to 20 minutes before go time or show time, I'm imagining the room. I'm imagining the people in the room. But I just see them as lights,
Mhm.
and tuning myself to them even before I see who they are.
Ooh, I
And
see them
then
as lights. That's
yeah,
powerful.
I see them as lights because I don't know how they're going to look
Mhm.
and their physical body, but I know we all are spiritual beings of light. That's what I
Mhm.
believe. And then comes the really important part. I put up my bullet points, I look at it and remember that I know it. And then I let go. And my prayer is use me.
Mm.
And I
The re-
allow space for, like, I know what I'm going to say. I've been practicing it. I know what the things I want to cover, but I always leave room for source
Mhm.
to speak through me. And I think that's easier said than done. That takes practice and allowing that. So that's what my day is like before I speak.
I love it. I love it. So there's a third magic I want to talk about called expression magic.
Mm,
And that's really allowing source to speak through you, move through you, create through you. And I'm wondering when you think about, giving a talk, how often do you find yourself maybe telling a story you didn't know you were going to tell, or kind of like you have options, but the right thing comes through? I would call that expression.
absolutely. And by the way, when I work with my clients, we always work on at least 5 stories,
Mm, yeah.
right? So that you have one for different audiences at
Mhm.
works. So you're already doing that. So you already have that sort of in the vault. But sometimes I'm like, wow, what are we doing here? And then because I know what the next bullet point is, I allow, because it must be, because I'm tuning myself to the room, it
Yeah.
must be that someone needs to hear this. And I wasn't planning it. but I just trust myself and my connection to source and the magic that we're
Mhm.
allowing through to express itself. And then I know exactly where to go next because I know what my next bullet point is.
I love that. That's such mastery. Oh my goodness. I'm thinking of, I hosted retreats for 8, I still do, but like retreats has kind of been my jam. And in a retreat, I could get feedback, right? So I'm like,
Right.
I'm not sure why I'm telling this story. Did someone need to hear this? And they're
Yeah.
like, the exact 3 people are like, that was for me. Here is why. And that helped me learn to trust it. And it
Mm,
feels harder in a big group on a
yeah.
stage.
But it isn't, right? That's just because the bigger the group, what you'll find is that they're always the same issues and stories.
Mhm.
It's like they're patterns.
Yeah.
And people that have
Mhm.
this story that's not exactly word for word the same story as mine, but it's close enough that it's this group, and then over here there's this group that is having that, and
Yeah.
you start to learn to feel the audience
Mhm.
in those pockets of energy and information. And if you're present, if you're willing to be present to that and not lose yourself in it, it can really get
Mhm.
magical and
Yes.
fun.
Yeah, because I know people can also get nervous that they're going to lose themselves in it,
That's
or
right.
they do. And that's where they just keep talking.
Well, and that's why you need a mentor to help you with this, right? Because
Yes.
you need to know how to practice it in the way that you make room for losing yourself. And that's actually a good
Mhm.
thing because you know how to come
Yeah.
back.
Love it. Yes. Um, Gosh, I'm thinking of a couple things. I went to a workshop once and it was great. I don't even remember what it was about, but it was something about femininity and connection or something. And the everything was great. And then there was a point where the facilitator kept telling stories and it was like, and I could feel when the energy went from she's serving us to we're feeding her.
This is really, oh, that's so good. So
And
good.
immediately then I wanted to leave. Like,
Yeah.
okay, is this done yet?
Yeah. And that is, we're going to bless her, whoever she is,
Yes.
because she didn't have her button, probably.
Yes. Yes.
No one showed her how to know she was done. And
Yes.
that to remember that whenever we're telling a story, where the story's function is to create the framework through which your audience can see themselves.
Mhm.
So you're telling your story so that
Mhm.
they can see themselves in it.
Yes. Thinking of the done button, um, prior to the done button, you help people have a call to action. You included that in your outline, and I know you have like a really fun gift about this.
This is listen, this is one of my favorite gifts that I ever created. And I created it because I was watching one of my clients that I rarely do. I got to be in the room when she gave her talk, and that's
Mm.
rare. Um, and she was rocking it. And then it came time for the call to action, and I watched her energetically withdraw.
Mm.
And it
Yeah,
was
I've seen that. Mhm.
imperceptible, like it wasn't something anybody could put their finger on, but I watched the reaction. She
Mhm.
lost them, and she lost them not because she's not fabulous. She lost them because she lost herself.
Mm.
So this gift are 10 ways to bring in what I call to action magic, which I thought would be the
I love
perfect
that.
gift for your
Yes.
people, Darla. And they are just simple tips to remind you to put yourself back into the call to action. Sometimes because of our own stuff, we get
Mhm.
lost.
So
We
good.
withdraw. We because of our own issues about asking for money, right? We lose the alignment that we feel when we're teaching and giving. Remember, a call to action is only an invitation for more transformation.
Mm,
And they're not giving you their money. They're investing in themselves and believing in themselves. And you're there to hold space. That is your function. And
mm.
please don't abandon them when they need you the most.
Ooh, yes. So you can find that gift. We'll put the link in the show notes at themagneticvoice.com/CTAM for call to action magic.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Monique. This has been so fun. I know it's going to be a well listened to episode and people will fall in love with you as I have. So,
Thank you so much. And
um,
thank you for what you do, Darla. I am having a little dream of us doing a retreat together someday.
ooh, okay. That feels fun in my body.
Oh, what
Sensation
a
Magic
pleasure.
likes it.
Yes. Thanks a million.
Awesome. Thanks for who you are, Monique. And everyone will see you in the next episode. Go out and activate your magic. All right.